Fela DUROTOYE is the presidential candidate for Alliance for New Nigeria, ANN. A vibrant man, one of the founders of the party, Prince Adekola. Sitting next to him is, by adoption, also a son of the soil, Dr. Thomas Wilson Ekwubese. He's a lover of Akure land. He has a business in Akure. He has mansions in Akure, and he's stayed very long in Akure. So by implication and by adoption, he's very qualified to contest any position in Ondo State and in Akure land. And very shortly too, I will have to see that he the deputy chairman, the deputy state chairman of ANN and from the entourage, we have one of our candidates, Federal Constituency Member House of Representatives, Mr. Honorable Akinduko. Is a UK-based candidate, but is with us, and also in the entourage are members of the State Executive Council and the campaign committee members. Thank you very much. And my humble self, Oguntu Ache Joshua Folusha, the State Chairman of the State ANN. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. I want to say welcome to the Deji's Palace. And without wasting much time, let me invite an alumnus of the greatest university in Nigeria, in West Africa, an alumnus of Obafemi Awolowo University. And you know, when you say Great Ife, you definitely know this is Great Ife. But these are no time for that now. I just have to inform His Majesty that we also have one of the Great Ife. We are always proud of that product. Thank you very much. I invite a presidential candidate of the Alliance for New Nigeria, Comrade Fela DUROTOYE.
Permit me to do it the way I've always been taught. Your Imperial Majesty, it is an honor to be able to stand before you today. And I want to thank you for the time that you've accorded us, literally at very short notice. And I know how, only imagine how busy your itinerary is. To be able to squeeze us in shows the love that you have for the next generation and your commitment that you've always shown to raising the next generation of leaders. And I appreciate that, and I want to say thank you to you, thank you to Her Majesty, the Olori, thank you, sir, to the Chief, the High Chief of Akure land, and we want to thank you. Just a quick introduction, and I think one or two omissions that I would like to make, because I'm sure you'd like to know. So the founder of the party, his name is Prince Adebola Adekoya, also of royal lineage, right? And I believe you've introduced, but I also thought that it might be good to introduce the chairman of Alliance for New Nigeria for your state chapter. He came all the way, he was our host yesterday, and he came with us all the way to see you and to also pay his respects and regards. That's Mr. Michael Ayodele, Michael Ayodele, forgive me. Your Majesty, I will not take too much of your time. The time is very precious. You know, when you were being introduced, you were introduced as the Royal Majesty with a difference. It's very interesting that the payoff line for Alliance with New Nigeria is itself the difference. So in a sense, you are already the Royal Majesty of Alliance for New Nigeria. And so we have by adoption, sir. You don't need any membership forms. But the matters that I would share with you over the next few minutes, Your Royal Majesty, I'm sure are the matters that touch your heart. Because when you look at Nigeria, you ask yourself, is there any nation in the world that is as blessed in mineral resources, natural resources, or human resources like this nation has been blessed by the God Almighty, the maker of the heavens and the earth? And I doubt that an answer can quickly come, if any can be found. That per square kilometer, any nation can have the abundance and the quality and the quantity of diverse natural resources as we have been gifted by God. And you, Your Imperial Majesty, has had the joy, I presume, of living in a nation where things work, where not only do things work, but they work for everyone, where the metro works for everyone, and you can find the mayor of New York, Bloomberg, riding on the same train as the janitor in the Bloomberg group of companies. Because it is what is acceptable to the rich is affordable and accessible to the poor. You've seen healthcare acceptable or accessible to everyone. You've seen power for years, and the only time when darkness shows is by choice, when you switch off the light. The only time when candles are required is when you have romantic dinners. We've seen nations where things work, and one thing we know that is common to all the nations where things work is not resources, it's leadership, it's good governance. But one other thing that we found out about most nations where things work is that whether you look to France, or you look to Canada, or you look to the United States, as with much of the United States history, you will see that these nations have one thing in common. They have the capacity to identify young people, groom them, and give them opportunities to be able to serve their people. And so we also, as a nation, have enjoyed that great grace and good governance at some point in time in our lives. At the beginning of independence, like 1959, it was a 48-year-old man who stood on the podium and delivered the Independence Day speech as the Prime Minister of the newly independent Nigeria. Subsequently, as you know, there were certain disruptions in our leadership and governance, but then it was a 31-year-old Colonel Yakubu Gowon who kind of like led the nation through a wartime. It was a 38-year-old General Olusegun Obasanjo who led the nation into the greatest agricultural revolution that Nigeria had ever experienced. And even then, our current president, you know, who's 76-year-old today, was a 41-year-old general when he took the helms of affairs of this nation on December 31st, 1983. We have seen subsequently a 44-year-old General Babangida, and we can go on and on and on. But sir, we've also seen somehow over the period of time since I was born, 1971, 47 years ago, when one naira or one Nigerian pound exchanged for $3 US, and you needed $300 US to buy 100 Nigerian pounds, to a time when today, 47 years later, as the age of those who are leading us have grown in, and we've seen somehow a slight decadence in our economy. Today, sir, if you saved 1 naira at the end of every day, after 1 year you will accumulate 365 naira, which will be enough to buy $1. So a 1 naira savings for a year will buy $1 for a blessed nation. Kabiyesi, I did not come to distress you with statistics that you already know, because you hear the cries of the people. But we've seen a blessed nation become the home to the poorest people. We've seen, you know, Kabiyesi, I do not want to distress you with that. What I want to talk about is the light at the end of the tunnel. Kabiyesi, you sit today on the throne as a light and a beacon to a next generation, to show that wisdom can be found in those who are younger, and not just those who are the oldest of all. Today you sit as a light and a beacon to show every young man that it is possible, that time and chance can happen to us in a way that will bring good leadership to our people. And every 20 years, Kabiyesi, Nigeria has gone through a time of renewal, starting with our first general election in December 12, 1959, that brought an end to 58 years of colonial rule and, as it were, a new nation being birthed in 1960. 20 years from 1959 was 1979. And we saw here, 1979, again, a transference and a renewal in governance from military rule of 14 years to a civilian rule. 20 years later, we saw again, this time, 1999, transference of another 15 years of military rule, but this time to military in civilian clothes. So you can see a pattern of 20 years. Kabiyesi, you are a great lover of history, and you see the hand of God. Clearly, it's more than an incident or a coincidence. It is a pattern. 20 years from 1999, Kabiyesi is this year, 2019. And as it was that at that time, in 1959, a 47-year-old man got the privilege to become, at 48, the Prime Minister of a new nation, ending 58 years of colonial rule. Kabiyesi, a 47-year-old man stands before you today. And by the time this election is done, we will still be 58 years of independence. But Kabiyesi, you would agree with me that it has not been 58 years of freedom. It has been a 58 years that we have, in a sense, turned things from around, that has brought not only greatness to like they said, from Kabiyesi, 58 years of colonial rule was ended in 1959. Kabiyesi, I would like to say that it is time for us to end 58 years of cabal rule, 58 years of selfish rule by a few people who have held a nation bound, who have robbed us not only of our commonwealth, who have robbed us of the glory of our traditional rulers. Kabiyesi, it was the traditional rulers that were the Ajoba, and what on Ajoyoba. So it was your leadership, the titles, the Deji that were governors of the area.